G'day guys and gal, there really isn't much that can bother the Necrons. They have no souls, fear nothing, literally enslave their own gods and use them as Pokemon, and killing them just makes them respawn back at base. They're just chill guys. However, there is something the Necrons fear. The only Catan they could not bring to heal. A Catan that was pushed too far and went insane. That Catan is the Outsider, and those that know of its existence go to bed every night praying it never returns from its exile. A prayer that potentially may be about to fail. But what do we know about the Outsider? How did it survive? Why is it in exile and why hasn't it returned yet? Before we get started, nothing quite slaps as hard as good value, and boy do I have some value for you. The goal of Major Minis was to get as many minis into people's hands as possible. As a part of that philosophy, I wanted to try something experimental this week. I wanted to give away as many free Big Es as possible. The way this is going to work is that until Sunday, if you spend over $100, you will get a free Ra the Golden Sun. However, if you spend over $250, you'll get a free Big E attached to your order. So if you're interested in getting some minis and been holding off, now is a great time. Last week we literally launched the Shark Army bundles, so if you get some of the bigger bundles this week, you will instantly qualify for the free Big E or free Ra. As you know, I don't often run sales or gifts with Major Minis. I price them what I think is fairly valued, so this isn't a common offer, thus making now a great time to try it out. Link is below. Today we'll go over the Outsider, detail what it actually is and where it could be. Let's get into it. As a bit of a rundown on what the Catan are, as context is king baby, the Catan were these ancient star parasite gods that were connected with the fundamental laws of reality. They were kind of like these cosmic god-like jellyfish, slowly traveling across the galaxy and eating stars. The Necrontyr, an ancient race of salty sausage people who didn't know how to make sunscreen, discovered them and decided that putting said star gods into living metal bodies was a good idea. Spoilers, it wasn't. Thus the Catan were born, a blend of cosmic divinity and science, and immediately the newly sentient Catan became raging manipulative assholes and gaslit the Necrons into sacrificing their bodies and souls to the Catan as food, before then turning them into legions of unliving robot slaves for their new overlords. Now there was a whole ruckus in an epic galactic war called the War in Heaven, the Catan and their Necron legions versus the old ones and their psychic creations. It was a seriously fat war. However, it appeared that the Catan were winning, with the old ones driven into extinction and only a few of their creations remaining. However, the Necrons were kind of sick of being slaves. They wanted to rise up against the Catan, but the Catan were too powerful. Until Kay-Gorak, the Eldar god of clowns, memes and gaslighting, pulled a bit of a prank. Kay-Gorak managed to convince the Catan to turn on each other. For some, he simply fed into the Catan's ego and hunger, convincing the greater Catan to eat the lesser. But for the Outsider, he actually did something kind of mean-spirited. He appeared before the mighty Catan and called him a little bitch. Then he projected an illusion of himself onto many lesser Catan, so that the Outsider would rip them apart and consume them, thinking he was actually slaying Kay-Gorak. See, Kay-Gorak was the goat of the War in Heaven. He was born to slay Catan. It was he who told Cain how to defeat the Nightbringer, and now it was he who got the Catan to turn on themselves. The Outsider, whose true name is Zaranoga, bit of a weird fucking name, did not want to consume its own kin, being one of the few greater Catan to resist the temptation, so to be tricked into doing it would be pretty horrifying for him. The Outsider was driven insane, maybe by the horror of what it had done, maybe because it had a bunch of its brothers absorbed into itself who were trying to rip their way out. But either way, the Outsider had the galaxy's biggest crash out, with its physical form twisting and folding in onto itself, then turning into a kind of Dyson sphere exoplanet labyrinth before dragging itself to the edge of the galaxy in exile. The Outsider was seemingly the most powerful of the Catan, and it was by far the largest. With the Outsider exiled, the Nightbringer already smashed into shards by Cain, the Void Dragon already smashed into shards by the Blackstone Fortresses, and the Deceiver already been a bit of a bitch Catan anyway. With most other Catan in each other's bellies, the Silent King took this as the chance to rise up against the remainders, smash them into shards, and then use those shards as batteries and Pokemon. Dude literally uses one to power his Deus, which I think is just aura farming at this point. The reason everyone refuses to kill Catan is because if you kill them, a fundamental part of reality also dies alongside them, which is a bit of a problem. The only known Catan that had been killed was the Flayer, who was so hated by the Necrons that they were willing to risk reality to end him, with the consequence of its death being the creation of the Flayer virus, a horrifying Necron exclusive virus that basically turns them into zombies. This means that the Outsider is the only Catan that was never smashed into shards, thus is a fully intact Catan and arguably the most powerful thing in the entire galaxy in the current setting. Now in true GW fashion, all the lore from now on about the Outsider is mastered mystery and misdirection and ooh, spooky. So I'm just going to be an adult for a second here, put all that shit to the side and tell it how it is. Now some of the stuff is Eldar legend, which is often a bit exaggerated for dramatic effect, and some stuff is more concrete. There is an Eldar text that says the Outsider is imprisoned in exile, chained up by the Eldar god of the hunt, Kurnos, but I don't really buy into that much. I am much more of the belief belief that the outsider was turned insane by the K-Gorak prank and has subconsciously self-imprisoned and self-exiled itself. But what does that prison look like, and where is the place of exile? Now amazingly, the outsider has actually been located. I expected more misdirection from GW, but no, he currently sits at the edge of the galaxy and has physically turned himself into this massive Dyson sphere exoplanet labyrinth shit. This form of the outsider is, wait for it, 32 million times the size of Terra. No, I did not stutter. An Imperial Navy ship was exiting the warp that was somewhat near it, and by somewhat I mean still an ungodly distance away. Space is huge. However, he was able to pick it up on his augers because of the amount of light it reflected. This thing is so big that it could fit our entire solar system in it. If it moved into the Milky Way, it could literally fuck up many gravitational pulls from its mass simply by passing by systems and sectors. The captain of the naval ship said that even being somewhere near the outsider made him lose his grip on sanity and really made him want to kill himself. It is said that being around the outsider is basically just suicide central, and everyone just kills themselves the closer they get. It's unclear if this is due to it radiating grief and insanity over what it did to the other Catan, or if it was just always just a really bad vibe to be around. He is such a bad vibe that even Tyranids will stay the fuck away. There was a splinter fleet of High Fleet Leviathan that was entering the Milky Way near where the outsider is hanging out, but then they decided to redirect around the long way purely to avoid it. And these are the same Tyranids that will happily fly through the ghoul stars to get to food faster. I see some people be like, why doesn't chaos just corrupt it? It's big, scary, and sitting there. They love corrupting that shit. Well, any attempt to do so would be severely retarded. The Catan hate the warp. They are the gods of reality. Reality is the opposite of the warp. They are completely incorruptible, and any attempts to corrupt them would likely result in a bunch of chaos boys blowing their own brains out. Now, due to his insanity, the outsider is doing something a bit wacky. See, within his Dyson sphere form, he also has this labyrinth prison. Within that prison are all the Catan he has consumed, desperately trying to escape. Yes, that is right, the outsider has turned himself into a Catan jail, with fully formed, unsharded Catan running around inside him like lost children. You may just say, okay, if he went insane from getting gaslit into eating his brothers, why does he now torment them when he probably could just set them free? And the answer is, I'm not sure. Do I look like a fucking Catan psychologist to you? The dude is labeled the Lord of Insanity. Who knows why he does what he does? And now the big question, why doesn't he get up off his ass, reform into his true form, and then come kill everyone? Why doesn't he get revenge against the Elder and K-Gorak? Well, it's kind of like the Lovecraftian god Azathoth, who is in an eternal slumber, with all of existence as we know it simply his dreams. If he was to wake up, existence itself would cease to exist. Same kind of vibe for the outsider. When he was pranked by K-Gorak, something deep and fundamental broke within him. His mind was shattered and his physical form literally warped. He may be so deep in his insanity that he has no idea how to reform or even gain awareness of the wider galaxy. More than likely, he is content just fucking with his consumed brothers, completely oblivious to the flow of time or the events of the galaxy. There are rumors in the lore that the outsider is due to return soon, during an end times-like event. The Elder themselves say that when the dead return to life, when a bunch of Elder then die, and the other great four Catan return, perhaps via their shards coming together, will the outsider come back. However, so far the big-ass Dyson sphere hasn't done anything and remains the exact same as it has for the last 50 million years. To be fair, there is about 12 different end time scenarios for every faction in 40k. The Space Wolves literally have their version of Ragnarok, the Elder have the Ranadundra, Chaos and the Imperium of Loki been having their own apocalypses for the last 10,000 years. So people saying, ooh, the outsider's about to return is the same energy as, ooh, the Emperor's about to return, or ooh, Malala's about to return, or ooh, my dad is about to return from when he went to go get milk 15 years ago. So to wrap it up, the outsider is a doomsday plot device, a boogeyman, arguably the strongest thing in the entire galaxy. The good news is that he doesn't have any faction that wants him to return because he is uncontrollable and unstoppable. He has no insane followers because he gives off terrible vibes and no one really knows he exists anyway, and even the other Catan don't want him to return because he ate a bunch of them and now tortures his food for eternity. So the odds of us seeing this guy come back anytime soon are slimmer than the cast of Wicked. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up some major minis. Spending over $100 will get you a free Ra model, over $250 will get you a free Big E. Hit the subscribe button, hit the real subscribe button for more outside content. Enjoy this, look for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.